meeting to order. And approval of minutes.
I did that observing issues. Judy was kind enough to forward a couple of items that I accidentally overlooked. The heading references the wrong month. There's no page. So I'll make you all feel bad if you didn't notice anything.
I noticed it. I haven't had an opportunity for it, so. Chris is smiling.
So yeah, obviously the reference to July 13th should be August 10th. At the determined quorum line, it was Electra that called the meeting to order as the new chair of her first meeting, full meeting. And we should be good.
Anything else?
Heads.
Nope, that was it. I move that we approve the minutes with the amendments that Judy provided.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Public comments, item not on the agenda. Any members of the public?
I think everybody's here to put something on the agenda. So everything online is everybody online are names I recognize for terminal buildings. So
Items for discussion, action, unhoused encampments.
well, we're going to start with kind of a heavy lift. We talked about this a couple of months ago. We knew there was a few people over on the east side of the river behind Stevens Drive, Gilbert Street in that area. At the time, you know, it was a manageable situation. We knew who people were. Kevin and Sam and folks were doing their best to get people services, or Sam, Aaron, and Kevin was our liaison for kind of everybody. Unfortunately, the camp has grown tremendously in size. I don't have an accurate head count, but easily a couple of dozen people. Not anymore. No,
I would say 11.
11.
I would say 13, 15. I counted 13
All right.
yesterday. It's not, I think it's under 20. I mean,
All
we're
right.
not,
Well, I
but,
stand corrected. I will.
but we have people that come visit
Yeah.
the folks, but I think conservatively you have 12
Okay.
to 15. We're not talking dozens yet.
Well,
It did grow. Yeah. I certainly can see how DNR would think it's, because I think he thought it was 30 or more. I think Sam and I both agree 20 would be a stretch, but it's 15.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good to know. We do still have some recurring issues that DNR has said they'd be willing to work with us on and figuring things out. That's the human waste issues type things. We do have some garbage that has managed to find its way into the pond back there. So that's stuff that just needs cleaned up. And we are starting to, or have gotten people on the west side of the river to start camping in the Sturgis Ferry area. And it doesn't feel like too many over there, but I've seen about 4 or 5.
I would say that there's 2 on the 2 for sure on the west side in Sturgis Ferry.
But that gentleman always has a big footprint on a camp. And there's a couple of people we call it dry camp, to bring in vehicles for the night and stuff, but we're more worried about just the debris. But his camp would look like there's 5 to 10. It gets that big with trash, but there's 2 that we know, and we routinely go visit him. He's known to us.
With the DNR communications, we've also had a complaint made to the FAA for people in the near the RPZ or in the RPZ on the west side of the river. It is a bit of an issue for the runway protection zone. Yeah.
They're making the trees grow ground.
Yeah, it is what it is. I don't know who made the complaint, but FAA reached out to me and just said, hey, somebody sent us a complaint, and I gave them a quick here's what's going on. Nothing else has come of it.
Who reached out from the FAA?
Our FAA planner.
Oh, really? So like.
So it went from, it was,
and stuff.
so the compliance office basically told, from what I understand, told our FAA regional office kind of liaison people. And they reached out to me and said, hey, this was something that happened. I don't know, obviously they don't know what's going on. So I gave them a quick spiel of, yeah, there's some folks over there that, we work with the local service agencies to try to get them into better situations and get them out of the area. That's kind of what's happening right now. But with those issues, I don't feel comfortable not doing anything anymore. That's kind of where I'm at, and I know it's a bad situation. It's not exactly what we wanted to do, but what I'm going to ask the commission for tonight is between Jennifer and I to give us the authority to start working on clearing out both areas.
Animal. Okay, good. I now see you.
So I guess earlier this year, or when we talked about a couple months ago, it's like, well, the majority of them were talking to you guys and had plans or like procedural plans, but have those people turned over and now it's new people, or is it those people that are still waiting?
It's both. I mean, we've moved in, I think, 5 people who now have apartments in the community. But yeah, there are some people who were not there that are, and so that's why the number has fluctuated. But I mean, 5 people leave, and then there's 5 tents that are.
Because it does seem like it's gotten slightly, the footprint at least seems like it's gotten larger from when I'm in the air and seeing it. It does look like there's more, at least structure, not structures, but or some sort of structure.
Well, I would say one of the
footprint.
like things that I've communicated to people is like there's more space if you go south instead of that bottleneck by Lucky Paws and the construction. So anyone who might not have been there originally would have like chosen to go where there's that bigger space, that bigger gap between them and businesses that are gonna then get conflict with them.
Just to add, I think, so Sam's engaged with all of the individuals in that space. I mean, one of the challenges that we have just in this community, right, is affordable housing and finding landlords that have more flexible kind of guidelines for renting. So Sam did some quick math this week just to kind of see, and all of the individuals there have applied for apartments. We have 30+ denials from different landlords. So I mean, it's just kind of the nature of housing in our community and the challenges that we have with moving people in a quickly into housing. Because all of those individuals, I should say, meet HUD's definition of chronically homeless, which also means they have a disability. And so there are just additional challenges.
So, I mean, I think for me, at least, I would be moving towards what you and Jennifer want to do with the sole reason is that, like, the city councilors, I think, should be taken. If they want to decide how the city's going to approach this, then they should do that. But for us, like, I think the airport commissions should be deciding policy for the city that are people that are elected. So, I mean, we were appointed by the mayor, but I mean, I met the mayor for 5 minutes. When he was here the other time. So, I mean, I would agree or move towards that. And if the city councilors want to decide to do something different or provide guidance to us, I think I would be open to that. But at the moment, trying to find the nuances of an airport commission member, I don't think it's like my place at least.
I feel comfortable with saying, at least as far as being involved with other city departments, and there is a city working group that talks about this whole issue on a monthly process. There are conversations kind of happening to find that city voice, whatever that voice is gonna be. Part of the issue is, I've been at the airport for 18 years. Sure, we've had, as far as the city community goes, there's always been a homeless population. There's been an unhoused population. That those numbers have ebbed and flowed to some degree. This year is, as far as numbers go, from what I've seen, the number of places I've seen that have encampments is exponentially worse than at any other time I've seen since I've been employed with the city or employed at the airport, take your pick. I don't know what's driving that. Obviously, housing is an issue. We know housing stock is some, and for what it's worth, if there's something we can do structurally to assist, as far as the ground goes, the ground, it is out, the east side of the river is mostly out of any of the runway protection zones we'd be worried about. But if there's some way we can develop some other partnerships to even build, I know there's like basically single room shack type structures that other communities have tried. I'm open to, basically letting people have the ground per se, and try to come up with something organized. I know that's obviously a broader city discussion, but my concern right now is there's no good situation for any of it. But my concerns right now is we can either do this voluntarily on our timetables, or the DNR or the FAA is eventually going to lose patience, and they're going to come in and you will get this done, and you will get this done by X date. And at least right now we have a little bit more leeway to massage those timelines, work with Sam and Aaron in the shelter house to let them do their jobs and try to get as many people housed as we can. But otherwise, I don't see any good resolution for this.
Is the airport under potential liability based on what these people might do over there, since it's our property?
That's probably more of a Jennifer question, but
I mean, not really. I think the one concern is if, and I think we maybe had a large fire at one point, like burning a campsite, and I think that message was relayed. I mean, that's obviously against the ordinances. I mean, if we knew about things like that and they were continuing to happen, possibly, but I don't think that's I don't think it's a high area of exposure for that. But yeah, definitely if there's things that are happening but as far as I know, I mean, that message was relayed that that can't be happening. And so as long as we're not having violations of ordinances and different things going on, I don't think that is happening right now.
Well, just, they're not as frequent, but we still have them. When I was out there yesterday, had to counsel one of the gentlemen that had a fire and he's making us coffee. There's a 5-gallon can of gas right next to the fire. And I'm talking about his safety, his girlfriend's safety, but there's brush back there that goes literally, and they're compliant, and Sam and I talked to him about it, but yeah, it's less frequent, but it's not zero. So I just want to be clear. And Sam, we both talk when we see the camps, the fires, we tell them, can't be doing that. But you guys mowed back there recently, right? So the brush seems to be smaller.
Shortly after the meeting in July, we had a mowing scheduled because we knew it was like we usually mow once or twice a year over there.
Okay.
Just because it's the ground itself, topography is garbage, and every time you take a batwing over there, it just tears everything up. But yeah, that was kind of the timeline of we also needed to have mowing done over there. So I think a couple of weeks after that meeting,
but I agree with Jennifer. It's less. It's just I don't think it'll ever be zero on any encampment. They're just gonna periodically have. Well, they cook with it and they heat their coffee with it. But they were very receptive. I haven't had any pushback on when I talk about safety with this group.
So what are you proposing?
Liability with the business around? Because I know they're being complained, right, some of the owners.
Some of them have put up fencing.
Yeah.
I think I've seen a camera or two, a fresh camera or two over in the area.
They're doing things like locking their doors.
But are
And
we
it's-
liable to anything if something were to happen to their business? Because we're allowing for them to stay, so.
I think that most of the liability is gonna be on the individual unless because it's public property. Unless we're allowing something sort of specific to continue that we know about.
What's the proposal?
Well, my proposal is still for the airport commission to authorize me and Jennifer to take the necessary steps to start clearing the area out.
And where will they go?
Therein lies the social problem with this.
Yeah, I have sympathy for them, but also
Yeah.
we have an elected city council.
Yeah.
And they're kicking it down to us to deal with an issue when it's really, in fact, it's not a problem for the city. It's the city's decision for their policy to make. Like, I wasn't elected. I'm not, I don't want to make anyone unhappy or have to move, but this is the option I have instead of just leave them. And the city council, I think, has more tools available to them to drive changes in what they want to do.
So we don't want this to become a Portland, Oregon, where sidewalks and camping over the entire city. So the city has to do something.
I mean, I don't think they have any more room than we do, but they are elected officials.
Well, they have more of a budget. We don't have.
Yeah.
My concern is now that the FAA knows about it and knows, kind of
That's
where.
my concern.
That becomes my critical issue of. Yeah, right now, they're not telling us anything, they're not really saying do this or do this, but. They, as far as an agency, they are less connected to the area that DNR is. And, once you lose those human connections, I think it's a lot easier to be the rule book. And you will do this because this is what you agreed to.
I'm really worried about the fact that somebody made a complaint to the FAA.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It stunned me too, don't get it.
Yeah,
It's not something that I ever.
Somebody knew that this was airport land, somebody knew that was exactly the bell to ring, but that's honestly the change agent right there for me, is that this could impact grant funding, this could impact other things like that. You're right, we aren't put on this, I agree with you, we weren't put on the airport commission to deal with unhoused situations on our land necessarily, at least that wasn't on my bingo card of what's going to come up on the airport commission, but it is our responsibility to look after the airport, and if it's going to impact grants and things like that, I want to find a solution. What I'm concerned about is, I'm sorry, remind me your name. Aaron, I think it was you in the last time we talked about this that mentioned, that forcibly removing these people from this public land counts as an eviction, hurts their chances of getting housing.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to be forceful about it, at least I'm speaking for me. I don't want to be forceful about it and start evicting people, but similar to, Sam, right?
This is Sam, I'm with the PD.
Yeah,
he's with
okay,
outreach.
yeah, sure.
We're both with outreach.
Yeah.
Different agencies.
I think it was you two talked about the fact that there was a situation with an encampment and you telegraphed.
Yeah, we do.
And then that ensured that they didn't have.
We got full compliance on that one. We don't always though, right? I mean, it just.
Right.
It's relationships, and without Sam, we would be doing a lot more forced evictions, but it's a campsite or the campsite will never be perfect. We'll never bet 1,000.
Right. So I guess where I'm getting at is, to the extent that we can telegraph that this is coming, we can get people out without negatively impacting them here. Because I feel like our hands are tied with the FAA complaint.
Yeah.
And if we can get ahead of it before winter, that's probably the best solution for everybody, but it just kind of sucks, right?
It does, it's not, it's not a situation that I find any joy in.
No.
This is not what I signed up for
No.
being an airport manager either.
So do we need to, make a motion? To have you be authorized to follow up with this?
Exactly.
I mean, I want everybody to chime in on this, because this is like,
This,
And I think you're gonna need to include whether or not that includes an eviction, if you're comfortable with,
If they want to voluntarily, perhaps.
Yeah.
Um,
or if that's
so-
something that you would want to come back again,
I-
before that stuff.
I would want to come back on eviction.
Jennifer and I have talked, if you have rough timelines, just because I wanted to wrap my head around it. As far as the legal process goes, you know, we file at X date, it usually takes about 21 days to run its course. Between us filing and the hearing is set within 15 days. And
Yeah.
then usually once the hearing, it's just a few days for a judge to issue an order, but that's kind of the timeline of the legal process. Now, you know, we have some leeway on when we file, that kind of thing. But if we're gonna do something like that to make sure we have it cleared out by winter, that's kind of the timelines you need to be thinking about, that you're looking at basically a month for the process to take place.
So is it reasonable to say we start telegraphing now, communicating with them and give them a heads up and let them know that this is coming? And depending on how that goes, trying to clear it before the next airport commission meeting, and then at that meeting, then we start looking at proceedings for anyone that remains. I mean, is that time unreasonable? I'm asking not because.
I do know that the city, and Kevin knows this, we post these signs, that the city has already like pre-prescribed signs
So
that post
with the
notice.
eviction, it'll actually be county that goes out, the county sheriff's office will go out. Sam and I, we know them and they tell me when it's coming.
So Kevin, just what about the notice of
So,
first that you guys?
Legally, we have to give them 48 hours. We normally do 5, 7, 8 days.
Yeah.
Like I post it, then I go out. I mean, we're talking before.
Yeah.
Then I post it, we go out, Sam goes in. It's pretty much when Sam's leaving, I'm coming in. I mean, we're like 2 ships passing in the night, but we give them there is no surprise that, 10 years ago, we just posted it, went in and just arrested people if they fought with us and just took their stuff out. They all know this is coming. My experience has been, and I've only been in this spot 4 months, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but most of them wait till the day of. I mean, they're doing some stuff, but we just did one just last week and I'm waking them up. They know that it's time to go, but they're still on that site up until the day. And then they're compliant. We use no force, no arrest. We're very mindful of like scrapbooks, photos, birth certificates, because in the past we've thrown that stuff away, and that's a game changer for these folks. And then we lose the connection. So telegraphing is a good word. And
Are
I'm,
you talking about that's when that eviction is actually?
yeah, we posted it,
Yeah.
and then they have the date, like the one we did at Benton Street Bridge. It was like by 8 a.m. on Tuesday, anything that's left here, we're throwing away. And
That's a
but
little different because that's.
oh,
right.
that's like
So there wasn't
Not like
actually
what we did.
eviction.
But we did
Eviction can be either
Staples.
against an individual or against a property.
No, it'll be against the individual.
individual, it'll be like Staples, but county goes out and they post. And then Sam and I reinforce and remind, because some of them have questions, some of them could be the first time they've gone through this. And
Is there a way we can give them notice that a month from now, if they're not gone, that they'll be evicted?
it's just informal, it's us going out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no,
Still could be some sort of formal notice. I mean, in terms of like posting a sign to say,
I can post anything I want on your property.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I think there could be notice that the airport commission has advised that eviction proceedings will be initiated if people have not moved by the state. I mean, I think we can give that notice. I mean, that doesn't, I mean, I think more notice is always better. That doesn't count as our actual legal notice, so then we'd have to give our 3-day notice to quit and we'd have to go through that process. But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong about saying, you know, the airport commission has, you know, taken action that an eviction proceeding will be filed if they're still.
But based on the map you mentioned,
Yeah, you could direct us to then start that process. Absolutely.
what about process? If we started in, after a meeting in October, then they would have. When would the signs be posted based on the timeline that you mentioned?
Well, we can post signs, like, we can post the
No,
informal stuff.
the formal one.
So
We
we
need 3 days.
we have to, which we can have the paperwork ready. I mean, but we would need to post for 3 days and then we would file and then the hearing would get set. Which the hearing is anywhere, it will probably be less than 15 days from the day we file.
So in October.
Beginning of November.
And then usually the court issues the order fairly quickly that directs the clerk to issue the writ to the sheriff's office. And the writ to the sheriff's office is what tells the sheriff's office that they have to go remove people from the property. And then the sheriff's office will coordinate that date. It's not like they'll get that writ and immediately go out. I mean, they'll give some notice, but they're not gonna wait. I mean, maybe a couple weeks. The sheriff's office isn't gonna hold on to that writ for a really long time.
So mid-November,
Or it sounds like early November.
what is it, 2 weeks?
Well, probably early to mid-November is when you'd have the order. And then you'd probably be maybe moving people towards the end of November.
That'd be Thanksgiving and. I mean, we're a couple of weeks removed from the winter shelter opening.
Yeah, is it a kindness to wait?
Mid-October?
What would you say?
Well,
As a
they have
person,
no place else to go.
would it be better for us to wait a month, give them notice, have some informal signs posted saying this is coming? Would that be better, or would they just simply say, oh, I'm
They
not
just-
worried for another 6 months?
Yeah, I think more time is always gonna be better.
Okay,
I mean, the issue with delaying is one of these other agencies comes in and says, you need to do this now.
Yeah. And then we do it.
And then we do.
I think that's
But
where.
the timelines hit, we don't have control over those.
Right.
We don't, but I think, you know, as part of this. I'm absolutely relying on everyone here to send this message, but like, we don't wanna make a quick rush decision.
No,
Oh, you know, we're in a position where our hands could be tied, so the sooner we can start telegraphing that. Leverage these connections that we have to this group. And, you know, I guess emphasize that this could go badly, we're trying to give you as much notice that it can.
But
Yes, I'm Chrissy Kingham with Shelter House. So the winter shelter opens on December 4th this year, and if there's a way to show the entities that you have to report to that you're making a good faith effort, we're all working together. But if the timelines can roll out in such a way that you are providing an opportunity for folks, yes, they need to leave this space, but there is the option then of the winter shelter, then they're making a choice either to come in or not at that point. We have the additional winter shelter capacity to offer. We don't have that capacity now and we can't open it soon.
okay,
Just that,
well, that sounds great, actually.
That
I'd
helps.
say if you articulate to these entities that are making the effort to move the process forward and
With the-
It'll-
we have with the FAA and DNR, but we have HUD and VA, and usually that counts for something.
The winter shelter, in October is the clothing distribution at the winter shelter then.
We don't own that building. We don't have access to that building until mid-November, and then we're contracted to start services December 4th.
I would be okay going that route and spacing it out, and then the eviction process would start after, or be ready to have that like finalized after the shelter's open. And then I think the understanding would have to be is that, right, we'll post it after or during this winter, and then if people show up next spring, then it will be a different matter, right? Because we posted the area
Yeah, the follow-up issue becomes what happens in the spring when people start reoccupying the area, because that's gonna be an inevitable thing. And I think at this point, the standing order, especially for PD, is people need to be trespassed off the property, right? As soon as possible. And it's not the greatest thing in the world.
No,
That
I don't wanna have to do this.
But yeah, exactly. If we're gonna go in and clean up the area, try to, mitigate the trash and DNR issues and whatever's out there. It behooves us to not let it happen again.
So
Do they automatically put up a, no trespassing at a protected area sign or something like that, like right away?
I mean, we've put up signs before and they disappear. It probably depends on how strong of a sign we put up too. It's just one of those things where people are gonna ignore it to some degree. And
Well, at least that's something we can point to the FAA and say, hey, well, it's not allowed.
yeah,
We aren't just opening the door to this.
So I kind of lost track of what we're proposing with the timeline with the December 4th thing.
I think it'd be a notice until the November meeting. At the November meeting, that would when the latest at which the eviction process would start.
But we would authorize it at our next meeting in October, right? If they haven't.
Sure.
taken the action.
Well, yeah, so that could be, I guess, so, yeah.
I mean, we can start posting notices now. Or the formal stuff that basically says, people need, and I would use the December 4th date for the winter shelter, if that's gonna be our trigger. You need to be moved off of this site on December 4th. And go to the winter shelter, otherwise eviction proceedings will begin. Or will be had, or some fashion of that.
Which I'm good with, and
then you can authorize that process at the
November meeting.
Or we can authorize it now.
You can authorize it now if you
Yeah,
want, if that's in your
and-
plan.
With the understanding that we won't pull the trigger until we have to.
And then we just, Jennifer just backdates the filing to kind of make
Well,
that timeline.
so if I'm understanding, I think we wouldn't even. If we're saying people have until December 4th, we probably wouldn't even file or wouldn't even post the notice, the 3-day notice to quit till after December 4th. Am I understanding that? And then we would file,
My interpretation of.
or we're filing sooner so that we would be able to have the writ to evict on
Exactly.
December, okay.
That's what we should do.
So we're filing.
Then we probably need to be telling people not that you need to move by December 4th to avoid eviction, because technically they're gonna be evicted, prior to that when we file. So, I mean, the eviction actually is gonna happen when the court issues the order.
And then what if that follows through, huh? That's a record.
Right, so that's at the point, so, I guess we'd have to say you need to be, moved on by, I don't know what date we'd have to back to, like November 1st or something to avoid eviction, because once we file that and we get the order to issue the writ, that's an eviction. The actual sheriff going out and moving people that are unwilling to move on their own, it's already done by that point in terms of being considered an eviction.
But we can decide when to actually file with the courts, so they would be able to move on December 4th.
We can, I think we just have to be careful how we're posting that notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think we can say, you need to move by December 4th or we're going to evict you.
Right.
If we're actually gonna file that paperwork before December 4th.
And I, in my mind, it was, we're going to tell people they've got to move off of the land by December 4th, so that they have the access to the winter shelter. And anybody that, for whatever reason, chose to stay after December 4th, that then we would initiate the proceedings. But
Then I think you can say that, if that's, I just wanted to make sure we were clear on what. If we wanted to have the writ to evict, on December 5th. Then we'd have to file ahead of
early,
time.
and it still counts as an eviction, which is the problem.
Yeah, that becomes the problem, because then there's about a month in there where they have to be off the property because that's the eviction notice.
Yeah, the eviction on the record is not when
It's
the
when the
writ
court
is in
is
the
gonna
sheriff's
issue
office
the
and
order.
given to the person. It's when the court says yes.
Right,
And then,
so when you have, usually I mean, at the hearing that is gonna happen within the. Probably less than 15 days, but within 15 days, you're gonna get an order probably at that time or maybe the day or two after. And that's at the time that it becomes an eviction of record.
But that is December or November?
this would be in December. So what she's saying is that if we like backdate it and we say, hey, we need you to leave, you have to leave the land by December 4th, and we're gonna evict you. In order to evict on December 4th, we have to file ahead of time in November. And at that point, it's already on the record, because the judge will give the order, a few days before we would have the formal writ.
Well, once the order comes down, that directs the clerk to issue the writ to the sheriff. So that would probably be within a couple of days, and then the sheriff then schedules that. So, the sheriff could do it immediately, but I think they would work with Sam and Kevin, and maybe it would be, 5 days out,
Holidays too.
10 days out, I don't know.
That's why my proposal is wait until December 4th.
And then you evict them on Christmas.
Well, no, because you're not gonna be outside, you're gonna go.
Well, yeah, I mean.
Well, the people that wanna move,
Yeah,
because
but
most
it's
of the things
good
that they
there.
might not wanna go in.
I mean, the truth is, it's a crappy time of year anyway.
I mean, none of it's good, because
No,
if we tell
all
all
these
these have to be
options
off by December 4th, then we basically have a haven in the city until December 4th that anyone can go there and camp and know that nothing will happen to them until December 4th, which is why, can we meet with the city councilors on Tuesday. I know we have important budget things to tell them, but I think that this should be at least an item. Because we have actual time to the city council.
I think they posted the agenda, but.
It's just a work session, but
Yeah.
accessibility of the airport is one of the topics. We can talk to the city manager's office and see how that works. I have no idea.
I will say that, this group of folks they came from winter shelter closing last March. So this is a group of people who do historically utilize the winter shelter. These aren't the folks who have stayed out all winter. The vast majority of this group were in the winter shelter last year. Have not been able to secure housing.
So basically, we may not have a problem do nothing at this point. Or,
DNR.
yeah, except for DNR.
Yeah.
DNR and or FAA.
So have they given like a timeline, or they're just saying?
No, they're like FAAs are in the situation, but I have had zero contact with the client's office. All of my communications have come from the FAA.
And they're not having columns of smoke.
No, as far as I can tell.
But the approach to runway 25.
By happenstance, the FAA Central Region team was at the airport today. We had this conversation. I had this conversation directly with him today that here's what we're doing. And he seemed like, okay, that seems reasonable.
So we can have it, I like the idea of starting the eviction process December 4th or 5th or whatever.
My other concern about December is we have to clean up the grounds after they leave.
Is that true?
You're gonna want to clear it up, yes.
And that's gonna be like middle of winter.
December will be bad.
Then, or,
December,
We don't know.
Party Islands, December will be.
Oh, December,
They'll give each of us a shovel with a little
Yeah.
spike on it.
yeah,
Go out there and do it.
Is there any way we can just make a notice? I don't know, because if we set any date, then we'll have to stick with whatever date we set for news.
Yeah.
Because it's almost, I don't know, yeah.
I think the encouraging them to know they have to go to the winter shelter. And
They won't be able to come
they
back.
won't be able to come back.
The only thing that worries me just from is giving someone a hard date
Yeah,
and then the DNR compressing that time.
Yeah.
Because whatever we tell these folks, I mean,
Yeah.
that's like a contract to them.
Yeah.
So, I would be
Okay.
telling them this date unless DNR, this.
Right.
So I always get real nervous because I mean, Sam can tell you, I got one guy mad at me, hasn't talked to me for 6 weeks because he thought I lied to him. And so, like, if I'm telling him you haven't till December 4th, hard date or something, and then you gotta do something quicker. That. Yeah.
That's how we word it.
Well, if you get
Yeah.
a fire that goes out of control, it could be anything can happen that
Yeah.
makes you say, we'll no longer, we can't do this.
that you just,
So how do we word it for them?
I think what I'm gonna say is. I'm just honest with them. This is what they're trying to get to. But it could come quicker. I just hate the quick
Yeah.
moves. Cause I don't know how much DNR is, cause what Ryan told me, a reasonable amount of time, and that to him could be 2 weeks. I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know
I
him
mean,
well enough to know.
that's the problem, you know, we all
But-
have these different concepts of what reasonable time is.
Yeah, so,
And I don't know what kind of timelines anybody could potentially give us, and that's part of my fear right now, is at least right now, we can control it. If we delay even to December, one of these agencies loses patience, or somebody complains to the right person,
Well,
we lose that avenue of control.
do we have the forms ready to go, and if you hear from somebody, they're gonna complain and do something, then you can walk it to the, I mean, we could beat them by a few hours.
That's what he's
And then we have
asking for
control.
power, right, for that, so they can do.
Well,
what they need.
I wanna do what the commission collectively is allowing us to do. Then that's part of the authority issue is, you can still give Jennifer and myself the authority to move on some of this stuff. With the understanding that right now, our timeline is to have people move in this on December 4th.
Okay,
And if we get, you know, a letter from the DNR that says this place needs to be cleaned up by X date, then we activate sooner.
Or you guys can be giving them that message that the airport owns the property, we're under pressure from several agencies to get them off, and that they will be moved. It's just a question
of when.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then does anyone have any responses for when the business owners start showing up to the commission meetings?
Well, then we're under pressure.
Yeah.
And
So that would move it up if we get more.
I feel probably 3 calls a week
Yeah.
from business owners. And,
For this property
Yeah.
specifically?
yeah, they're.
I'm a little surprised
I have to advocate for them. They're growing tired
Mhm.
of this.
I'm a little surprised we didn't have anybody at the meeting tonight from the community, because even I've had a couple of people reach out for when the commission meetings are and contact information, and obviously you guys haven't gotten anything, because I presume if you did, you'd be like, Mike, what's this?
yeah,
And then would
There's some questions.
you reach out to some of them to invite them to a meeting today, you said?
No, they were just asking about
Oh,
meeting information.
And I've gotten a phone call and I've told them when the meeting was.
Yes.
And I think
because I was kind of feeling like that maybe it was good to invite them to this meeting so they know that we're trying to do something about it and not we're just like, okay, we know.
I give them that message
We don't
and I
know
tell
that
them
they're-
that this is on your agenda. I tell them that Mike and I talk about every week, if not every other week. That, I mean, I'm just honest with everybody, but I agree with Sam, it's not necessarily the residents there, but there's just so much more foot traffic when you have 13, 14, 15 folks. And some of that foot traffic is garnering some negative social skills. People are uncomfortable. I mean, there are businesses locking the doors during the day that are normally open because their female staff are uncomfortable with the encampment and the foot traffic that it brings in. I mean, that's just the truth.
Yeah.
And it's not just one, it's several.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And I think Mike has had the same phone calls, and I think
Well-
Jennifer has as well. But what I tell them, we talk about the social problem, we talk that Sam's working, we talk about the housing dilemma, we talk about that you guys are actively talking about this and trying to find kind of a soft, gentle remedy before just evicting, that you're very mindful of not evicting during the winter. So they're receptive to that.
Okay.
But again,
They need the population.
Yeah, they're
being
just-
business.
Well,
Yeah,
and
the
I'd
business
like to
owners.
think we're receptive to the business owners
Yeah.
side of it too.
Yeah.
We understand their complaints too.
And
yeah.
We're trying to find that happy medium or unhappy medium of being able to manage the situation where Sam and Aaron and folks can do their job
Is the eviction notice against each specific person?
Yes,
So they actually file the paperwork, they have to know who they are and file,
they get their names.
they get the names and the, okay.
And that occurs before they actually come and arrest them.
Or on the property right then when they're posting it, they will get their name and put it on it.
Oh, I see.
Okay,
Well,
That,
how about this? How about if I propose
that
something and then if anybody wants to show you the wording, that the commission give Mike and city attorney Jennifer the ability to initiate eviction proceedings if it appears necessary based on FAA or other agencies insisting that we do something, or with sufficient pressure by the community that indicates we have to do something.
what's sufficient pressure? That's my question. I didn't go to law school, but I don't think that's a.
Yeah.
Okay.
We all have different comfort
A
levels
lot of pressure for
of
me.
how much pressure we need from business owners, because
Okay,
I don't like angry phone calls.
yeah, well, I feel like we could leave it up to your judgment, but that's what I would propose.
But you also probably don't want to act, just, you probably want to make sure that you're acting, you're doing what we want, and like,
Yeah.
you're not trying to read tea leaves and.
Well, but if we give him the authority to make that decision, I mean, Mike has a soft, I mean, he's been concerned about these people's welfare just like we have. So I feel like I can trust his judgment.
What if we just stop before that part? And just have.
Just, we authorize them to take action if the
Take
FAA,
action.
DNR.
If the FAA, because that's what's affecting the finance. And the finance is what's affecting the airport.
Okay.
The other is a problem, just like the city should be making these decisions, the city council should be there.
When you said the other, you mean the business owner?
Yeah, I don't, I
Okay,
think business owners would be like saying, well, if the city council decides on such and such, then now you can add that into the decision. I think as an airport commission, we need to look at the finance of what's happening
I understand, so
and not
we would
add all those extra
authorize
parts.
Mike and Jennifer to initiate eviction proceedings if advised to do so by the DNR or the FAA or perhaps city government.
I don't think they have authority to tell you what to do.
Okay.
So we have.
Those who are.
Let's get this at least for the next month.
Okay, so FAA or DNR or other agencies.
But I think what you were saying is they don't, the FAA or the DNR can't tell us.
No, the city,
The city.
the city can't tell you.
They can't tell us what to do with their airport plan.
Oh, sure.
I mean, the DNR and the FAA can't really tell you
Yeah.
that they can take something away
Yeah,
if you
I
don't
think
do
it
it.
has to do with funding.
The
the
city,
city's the same way.
Not the city, the FAA.
oh, well, yeah, but that's, yeah, we're not gonna bite the hand that feeds us. But, like,
Yeah.
I mean, if a three-letter agency that can like make things miserable for us gives us, you know,
I thought we were
a rough time, I mean, I think that's, that, to Matt's point, that's an unexpected or maybe semi-expected thing that comes up. And we gotta act on that, right? Same thing happens if there's a massive fire or something
Yeah.
that we just can't ignore. I think a reasonable person wouldn't be faulted for thinking, well, they gotta do something. Right?
Would that be okay with that? Is there gonna be a date attached to that then in December to start it?
Well, between now and the next meeting, if that would be the.
I mean, that would carry us through the next meeting.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to do the, you know, other, if you wanted to do it all at once, you would just say that, otherwise. We file for the December 4th,
A goal of December fourth, to final.
I mean, I think at that point, so the problem becomes if the eviction, if the records are impacted when the eviction happens, that's when the court orders creates the order. Right? So
Not when the eviction.
not when they
Right.
physically.
Right.
So if we if we don't want them to be impacted before the winter shelter is open, we really can't do anything before December 4th.
Got it. Okay, so that's, I guess that's what we do then.
So, but if we file on December 1st, which I don't know what date it is.
Yeah.
We have 3 days to post some signs, you said, before we file.
We have to file a 3-day notice, or we have to post a 3-day notice
Yeah.
before we file. the grant.
We can post the signs on December 1st. Yes,
That's for,
that would be 3 days before the 4th, when we would actually go through and do this.
Yeah, I think you could do that.
I'm fine with that plan. Barring some unexpected situation, in which case I defer to your best judgment. And if you need, and if you need to have like an ad hoc, like 3 people get here and we decide to make.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah.
decision we don't want to do right now unless we have to, then we do, but like,
So, but you made a motion.
I'm not sure what.
One second.
Okay.
No, I was proposing it that we discussed. I've totally lost track of it, so,
So here's what I propose.
okay,
Okay, you proposed motion.
let's hear them.
There are a couple things here. First, our plan is that we're going to post notice of eviction on December 1st so that we can give them the 3 days notice and post signs, to give them 3 days notice that we're going to initiate proceedings, right? Because that's when that clocks. Until December 1st, start making our signs. And Kevin and Sam are going to, you know, if you don't mind.
No, we'll get your message. We'll put your message out.
Communicate that message. And then until then, we're going to try to manage the situation as best we can. And if there's a situation that arises that in Mike's judgment poses a problem for the airport or its operations or its funding, or there's some circumstance that requires immediate attention,
Then they have
we'll
to
just,
make-
we would authorize him to take action. And if he felt really strongly that we needed to have input on that decision, we hold another meeting. But
I'll second that.
that's the most wordy motion.
I pity, so let's grant that.
That's me. Are those conditions?
Yeah, that covers all that. Yep.
Are you sure?
That's it.
Okay.
I don't know what else to do
Any other thing?
We need a roll call.
it. I mean, if you,
All in favor.
oh, it's a
Aye.
Aye,
I,
excellent.
So that's where we're at.
and then next meeting we'll have an update if there's something that's happening, right?
Yeah, I think my ask of you would be keep us posted on this, especially with, like, this might be something where weekly updates via email to the commission might be helpful, just so we know where this is at. But I just want to make sure we got our finger to the pulse, that we have our finger to the pulse. I know you're closer to it. Like, I don't want
It'd probably be good to update them on business owners' comments, stuff like that too, just from the standpoint of,
yeah, just so we can kind of.
I don't know what that.
To be, like I said, I've had one in the last month. I know Kevin deals with it probably on a daily basis.
It's
We
everything.
need to reach out to them as a airport manager, that this is our plan unless something else happens.
I'm gonna leave all of that communication with Kevin.
I know most of it.
Kevin knows
I know.
everything.
And we kind of been directing that to
Yeah.
Kevin,
Okay.
we're not.
So we have it all just in one.
Right.
So just like anybody that calls Jennifer, she gives to me and I tell Mike, anybody, send them to me because I know the language, I know what we're doing. I'm the business owners see me down there every week and they comment that they see Sam. So it's not like we're just saying we're out there and they don't see us. They have my cell phone numbers, so there is a conduit of communication with the business owners.
That's good.
Good.
And you can reassure them
Now that
that we're
things are,
intending to do
yeah.
something.
At least tell them.
yeah,
Yeah.
At least,
Reassured, but
yeah,
tell them.
well,
I'll
it'd be-
relay your message.
Oh, thank you.
This won't go on for years.
Okay then, thank you so much,
Great.
everybody. for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, it's great.
And
Pleasure seeing everyone.
Thank you so much for everything. Next item, discussion, hangar, the murals and project.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the mural, go take a look at the mural on the hangar. It looks absolutely beautiful. Jenna is doing a great job and is listening through the work on it, so. There is certainly I'm not sure how much time she's got left in terms of what she's gonna need, but yeah, it's
Have you taken some picture of the progress?
I need to get some new progress pictures, but when she first started, I got some initial ones. So there's probably a gap there because I just haven't had a chance to run out there and grab some fresh ones, but
My wife commented, she didn't see them she was looking for pictures on the Iowa City Facebook page. She was like, oh, you said that. I'm like, I'll take some on the way up, but.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've got some on my
Okay.
phone. I just haven't.
Good deal.
Beautiful.
Airport construction project?
25 threshold relocation. I think we just have some lights, like
We have some lights that, yeah, still,
still ETA unknown.
Lights,
the repainting is done.
lights that were hit, lights that are taxiway.
No, still lights that need to be initially installed.
Oh, like we just don't have, we never.
Yeah,
got
like we
those.
just don't have them because the suppliers are that far behind on garbage.
These are runway headlights.
Yeah, I saw those at
You know,
night.
they look different,
Yeah,
or there's one or two that are even missing.
Yeah.
And it's
They're like
that
the old,
supply
like,
chain is so ridiculous.
1836.
Yeah, probably.
I was wondering if that was intentional. Now I know. Okay.
1230 display threshold. I'm just waiting for next spring with the contractors and everything's ready to go there. Terminal area study. Hey, we made it. I'll let here.
Okay.
Stand up here, just let Carolyn take it. Go ahead. I'm just going to let you take it. I'm going to sit back down.
Oh, not so fast, Carl. I think I need to have access to screen sharing. Is that okay?
No,
Right
what?
click on her name.
I want you to screen share.
It said host disabled participant screen sharing.
There you go. Now try.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, fantastic. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great, good. Full screen. Okay, great. Tonight we're going to touch on a few different things. We're going to talk about the survey results and the structural findings. Those are very brief. And then Ryan is going to walk through the revised landscape plan options, taking some of the input from the previous meeting into sort of a preferred plan. And then I will talk through our 4 building options and preliminary costing for the project with Jeff, who is also on the line. So Carl, I think at the end of the day, we had 58 survey results. Is that correct?
We thought that it was a pretty good turnout. It's much better.
Yeah. And I think what we found when we reviewed those was there were a combination of results that talked about the actual facility itself, and then some other survey comments about like hangar capacity and fueling station upgrades. But the highlights of the survey that were specific to the terminal were that the facility needed sort of a facelift and modernization. There were elements of the original architecture that were great, but should also be updated. The pilots area could use some modernization. It would be nice to have enhanced food and coffee service without providing sort of competition to other local restaurants. There was a comment regarding the waiting area size, staff space size, and of course added parking. In addition to the survey results, we did conduct a community meeting on August 17th and received some additional like qualitative feedback that you see in those images on the right-hand side on yellow Post-it notes. And we led the attendees through many of the same exercises we did with you back at the end of July. Anything to add there?
We had news coverage. I don't know if everybody saw, it was on Channel 9. They had a reporter here and interviewed Mike, and then at 10 o'clock, they had a little bit of more in-depth report and actually gave a link for the survey. And I think we got about a half a dozen more surveys online in the next few days after that. So we think it had a few more And we got the same comments. We didn't have a huge turnout by any means, but we did have about the same comments that we saw in the surveys from the people that attended. That's really all I have. A structural overview, we had our structural engineers came and I talked to them, and there were, again, no surprises, but a lot of fully in-depth, you'd have to go digging down and uncover and take concrete cores, of the foundation, that type of thing. We didn't do any of that, but they did get up in ceilings. They looked at beams and everything and found that, if you're going to extend up on the existing, that there would need to be some strengthening of what the current ceiling support or roof support would have to be strengthened. The walls could potentially maybe carry the extra load in foundations, but that would require some destructive testing and more, tearing stuff apart and digging down and exposing the foundations and everything. So, but generally, there were no major concerns. A little bit of corrosion in a few areas, but nothing that was even structurally, concerning. So that's just a real quick and dirty. But if you want to see the report, I know we can get it's out there.
I think I've seen it.
Did you send it to me? Anyway, if you haven't, I'll get it to you. I guess, Brian, you're up now.
All right, I'm here. Yeah, so we presented 4 different concepts during the public input process here and came away with some feedback, which tonight I'm presenting an updated, refined concept to Gateway and kind of site circulation based both on that feedback, but also just some additional information gained relating to the 2 main takeaways were additional parking is very much wanted, which was the reason that the image in the bottom left was selected. And then when looking at these 4 boards, the other thing that came up during the meeting was the preference for the LA compared to a kind of revised planting approach along the driveway towards the terminal. So either of the 2 images on the right there showing just a double row of trees, that was the preferred kind of landscape response along that driveway. So moving forward, we explored options that honored the existing kind of LA design approach and expanded parking as much as possible. So we can do the next slide. A couple other kind of images that were had a positive dot placed on a positive sticker was the top left entry sign there with some colorful signage, and one of the kind of trends right now is to see lettering posted up on top of a sign to elevate it, and to one of the benefits of that kind of design, of that kind of sign format, is that you can do something. You can fit a lot of letters along a longer sign, which basically gives it more of a presence in the landscape, at least from a kind of horizontal standpoint. And then on the right side there, the naturalized planting approach was got one of the green dots as well. And moving on. So what we heard essentially was that there was, a need for more parking. We have the solar field plan to the east of the existing driveway, or a ring drive, and is there an option to, or is there a possibility to kind of overlap those 2 programs to allow for solar to happen, but also for that to happen over the top of the parking structure, so we could have more room for parking. Again, kind of heard that the naturalized planting approach, that kind of low maintenance, hardy plantings was the way to go when we were doing plant beds. And then the other kind of circulation related comment was to consider, as you're coming into the airport, a direct connection to the southern hangars. So as part of our any of these concepts, we're exploring kind of converting to a true 2-way traffic pattern. So currently it's intended to be driven all the way towards the terminal, then make a hard left turn directly to the south, and then south through the gate to the hangars. And a lot of folks today are kind of taking that first, what feels like the first available left, and kind of not abiding by what's supposed to be a one-way traffic pattern. And when walking out on site, you can kind of understand why, but as part of any of these designs, we're going to be providing that more direct connection through a true two-way drive lane width. So next slide. When we kind of heard the desire for additional parking, our first question was, well, how many do you have? So we kind of know what we're measuring against. And so our count is 59 existing stalls that serve the terminal. Those are shown in yellow here. That's with the construction to expand parking last fall on the north and south of the Circle Drive there. The spots shown in red, we're assuming, or we're basically counting those as accessory parking spaces for the ambulatory service to the north or the maintenance shed to the south. We'll do the next slide. So this is our approach at expanding parking. It's a lot more, the parking was shown in orange previously. This is a lot more orange, if you will, essentially taking over the entire area to the east of the Ring Drive today for basically a maximized parking layout that does still accommodate pedestrian, there's pedestrian sidewalks to allow people to navigate up towards the terminal, but this is essentially just a way to combine again that solar for covered parking in kind of the two center bays there, labeled with an H on the plan.
So it's going around the solar
Under.
under the solar panels.
We were seeing the Universal Services building, where they've got the solar panels down there, right?
Oh, okay, okay.
Like elevated solar, like
Elevated solar.
shaded park car, really just.
Okay, okay, now I understand it,
I
thank
like
you.
it.
Yeah.
So Ryan, out of
Yeah.
curiosity, the layout that you have here, does that reduce the solar panel footprint? It does not.
I'm glad you asked. I will get to that in about 2 or 3 slides. We're actually
sorry, still your thunder.
It's all good. I'll work kind of, it's easiest, I think, to probably work right to left here. I'll try to back up a sec and talk more globally here. One of the things that, we've been focused on as part of this study is how do we increase the visibility of the airport driveway when everything is so set back from the road. And the mural will be a great addition, but we also felt like the actual signage itself could be beefed up essentially in scale and presence. And so what we proposed is a kind of a double sign approach, one on each side of the driveway there. The one on the north would be the primary signage, but then there'd be a second one on the south, which would serve dual purpose to kind of catch folks traveling northward from the south on Riverside Drive there. But you can also see to the south of the driveway there's a sidewalk connection close to where the existing jet is located, and thought that sign may be able to serve kind of a dual purpose, improved visibility from the road from the east, but also on the backside serve as kind of a veterans memorial in a similar location to the existing jet there. So when combined, I think we're really capturing the eyes of people traveling in both directions along Riverside, which I think is important. And then again, that facilitates the future connection to trails traveling north-south in a more at a higher level design there too. Moving kind of westward, we've showing a replanted alley of trees along the driveway again. And then we're taking that kind of arched geometry and echoing that along the driveway to basically extend the gateway experience a bit more. As part of that, also the materiality, I think, of those entry signs could be repeated through a series of kind of wayfinding columns that also kind of march through the alley of trees there along the driveway. So they're small rectangles, but they're really just a way to, again, extend that kind of architectural wayfinding strategy throughout the site a little further. So then you hit your first decision point there, the expanded parking lot, where it's just a left turn in, or it's a two-way, but it's a left turn in as you're entering the site, or you can continue on to a kind of a reorganized four-way, kind of true four-way crossing there for hangars to the north, terminal to the west, or you can go straight south to the hangars. And so that's shifted slightly to the east of where the existing kind of T intersection is, or Y intersection is, where there's some soft radiuses. So we're kind of firming that intersection up a bit. I skipped over, there's a big black arrow, kind of the midpoint of the driveway there, to the east of the parking lot. And that's to just recognize that we'd be maintaining access to the area, the lawn there for events. So back closer to the terminal is expanded parking on pretty much all sides of the ring drive, and a large central plaza that radiates off of the beacon tower there. So the general kind of organization of parking doesn't change much around the terminal. We're converting from angled parking to head in, and kind of cleaning some stuff up so we can get ADA stalls a little closer to the main entry. But most of this is really just about just updating the parking in response to the two-way traffic throughout that loop. Let's jump ahead to the actual parking comparison, and then after that's the solar comparison. So we can do the next slide.
Is it advanced for you? Can you see the parking?
Oh, I'm still stuck.
Okay. Is everybody stuck? I'll stop sharing and then reshare. Okay. Okay.
I'll try stopping my video too, see if it's on my end here. Okay, I've got parking now. So in yellow, we'll start, I'll kind of remind again, there are 59 stalls that are existing that serve the terminal, the ones that were shown in yellow previously also. I'm calling those now, see, I'm kind of converting what today is used for long-term parking, I understand, to the north of the terminal. I'm switching those over to short-term parking as part of this design because of the expanded parking in green. So that results in kind of 3 less stalls essentially adjacent to the terminal. But again, that 71 additional further out for long term. So in total, we're going from 59 stalls that serve the terminal to a total of 127, so over double.
I'm confused, when you have the extra in front of the terminal, the yellow area, and you've gotten rid of the angle, doesn't it mean that you have to have a wider space between the cars so that people can back out easier rather than when it's at an angle? I know we lose some parking spaces, but I would think it's easier for people to pull in and out of an angle.
The parking lot design would be slightly widened to get the wider drive lane, but allows for maneuvering into and out of perpendicular spots as opposed to angled slots. Because between the slots for angle is a narrower drive than when you go to 90 degrees. That would be part of the actual design.
How many would we lose if we eliminate the ones like right in front of the terminal? There are 18 there, so 9 on one side, 9 on the other side. Nobody.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to eliminate those.
So we'll be losing not the whole 18. I was just thinking more like in front of the terminal, those 9. And
more of a drop off type of a feel, you mean?
kind of.
Yeah, but then when it's bad weather,
There's still gonna be the ones.
Yeah, that's totally.
I like the idea of a drive up to the terminal. It depends what we do with the terminal.
Yeah.
If we have one of those designed for an overhang in front, having.
You're talking about having like a loading area?
Yeah.
Effectively.
Yeah.
Well, and then we also potentially lose the 11 on that bottom square if we're gonna extend that way too.
Or we're gaining 7 more.
Just depends what we do with the terminal.
Depends what we do with the whole terminal.
Yeah, she said we're gaining 71.
I mean, at worst, you're probably talking about losing 20 spots. We're still
gaining a lot with that whole.
We're still gaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're moving the long term away from the terminal so that you have a short.
Yeah.
And even based on funding, that long term out there showing where the solar is could be done in phases to as the need arose.
Yeah, the whole concept of long-term seems kind of silly for an airport like this, and people in parking here and going to Mexico for 2 weeks. Right?
See, I thought that too, but you said
We have,
You corrected me.
We have a handful of cars
Yeah.
year round.
Okay.
and it's not.
Well, that'd be a big-
And
It's
without
not-
control parking, you might be a short-term person, it's only gonna be here for a few years. But if it's in the middle of July, and you have some of the parking spot underneath the solar panels, they only be here a few hours, and you may decide to park there just to kind of keep your car shaded.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Or if it's snowing, so you don't have to go in.
Or if the parking lot is full close up, like it is almost every day, with more parking, and you don't care because you have a spot. Beggars aren't going to choose it.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, that's the general theme here. You know, as we get into the architecture part of the discussion, you'll notice that, you know, there's a lot of variation and in ways forward there. And so the landscape response is isn't you know, super defined at this point, because we want to make sure that we're not it's able to respond to whatever kind of architectural direction we move forward with the building itself. But generally speaking, yeah, the parking, as the building footprint enlarges and parking is displaced, it's moving further away. But the main kind of goal with the organization of parking here is that the short-term stuff is closer to the terminal and the long-term stuff is further out, and the overall quantity of parking stalls is greatly increased. So we'll jump over to solar here. So the existing solar array is organized in 4 different segments, totaling about 7,000 square feet. This is showing 2 bays in blue there, or purple, with a total of 7,500 square foot. So this is really just kind of an initial feasibility study, essentially, of whether the square footages work out. There's certainly more you know, design refinement and discussion that have to occur to make sure that this still meets your needs with the solar consultant, but it's intended just to serve as a, hey, we're trying to honor the quantity of solar array that you've provided before, that was designed before, as part of this design. So we also wanted to kind of provide some updated precedent imagery based on this refined concept. So starting to the left and working to the right here, just an example of what those monument columns could look like. These are just ones, again, that march down either side of the driveway there, and could be focused on kind of an interpretive or historical element. So teaching folks about the history of the airport, or you know, any number of things, or they could really just be a way to again echo the branding of the airport out in the landscape. Opportunities to do some landscape lighting again around that alley of trees or elsewhere on site would be a nice way to again improve visibility literally at night. There's a large kind of gateway sign there shown in the top right. This one actually has a sculptural component to it as well, which is, I'd be curious to see if that was something you're interested in pursuing further. Again, all about just making things bigger and more visible. That's a great kind of example of doing that. Otherwise, I think the sign's still pretty, you know, still serves a purpose with just the lettering and sign and a wall itself. And then in the bottom left, just some examples of that Veterans Memorial and a curved wall. Examples of what that could look like and how that feels. It's, you think about, there's the Vietnam Memorial. This is the Martin Luther King Memorial shown in granite there. Both of those kind of embrace you on the inside of that curve, and that's a fairly common approach to Veterans Memorials. So that'd be a great way to take advantage of the inward facing side of that gateway sign. And then the bottom right is just a kind of example of more, of what a round kind of public plaza could look like around that beacon tower. That one's actually showing, if you look close, it's actually showing a water component. I'm not sure that's appropriate here necessarily, but just an example of what that could look like. So while we're, if we just want, is there any interest from the board about doing something that's more of an overhead gateway over the driveway itself, or are two separate signs without that central gateway enough?
The signs are fine.
Yeah, the signs,
I'm not big on the gateway.
and I don't like the monument columns going down through it. It just,
Well, we already have
because we already have
signage
for just
coming, right?
for where things go. I don't think we need other thingies.
Yeah. So I like the curved walls with signage on top.
Yeah, I like that on top.
I guess I have some questions around dependencies and ordering. Because we have signs in the pipeline. We have solar panels in the pipeline. So are you asking for a ground stop here on some of this stuff to like explore doing this? Because we don't want to do it twice, right? So I'm trying to figure out like what's the order of operations here.
Well, as far as
Which, by the way, I do like what was laid out here. The solar panels on the parking is great, but it gets into like what
that phase of the solar power project is still a couple of years out, so we can adapt.
Okay.
But there were also issues about where the electrical boxes are.
Yeah, that isn't, with the space that Ryan's got in here, I do need to kind of give these to CMP and be like, here's what we're thinking. Does it still kind of work the initial plan? So that does need to happen. However, my knowledge of how all of that works and the cabling, it really doesn't change dramatically much of what we have planned. It does kind of reconfigure the layout to some degree. So there might be some cost issues in and also with the carport idea.
Yeah.
There could be some cost issues, but I know CMP was looking at, I just don't have that information.
But if you have a platform for the parking lot, and are they gonna need to break ground so they can put the solar panels?
Well, it also depends on how quickly, like Brian said, all of that parking can be phased in as needed. Like, we don't have to build that entire complex all at once. So we could start essentially with, the two areas that are going to be where the solar panels are. And then until then, what you have is you just have more or less this similar traffic circle that you have now. Out there, it's just widened to accommodate two-way traffic.
And in the drawings, I think you don't have to put the airplane in it, because that's one of the things I think we're trying to get rid of. I gave you all my notes on the Smithsonian. If you want me to continue, I need those notes back.
We'll get them back. Okay, since you already talked.
Because somebody's might be willing to take it off the hand. And it's not a real airplane anymore. It's bits and pieces of various things.
What do we think about the double sign?
I don't mind it.
I like it.
I kind of like the double sign too.
I think it's important that we have. To Ryan's point, like, you can't really see the sign from the south end of Riverside when you're driving.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Is, as we do trees and things, placing things, I'd like it to be more open from the sign back toward where not adding more, like, so as you drive, you can actually see the airport.
I think we talk about removing some of them and leaving a couple of them there.
Yeah.
Right? About the trees around the airplane?
Yes, those they had not been studied specifically for which ones stay and which ones go at this point, but yeah, we're not proposing like a wholesale removal or anything out there.
But as long as it's thinned out so that you can still see, because I think being able to see the solar panels is from Riverside Drive is good, yeah. But I like the trees as the going down both sides as you drive in. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I'll give just a quick overview of this. As you might imagine, the bulk of the cost is related to from that new parking lot. It's a lot of concrete. With that and other kind of hardscape improvements, it's around little over half of the total cost that we're showing here. So overall cost, if you skip to the bottom, is around 1.1 million. You can remove the contingency as part of this slide because it's going to be built into the combined kind of architectural cost later in the presentation. But so half of that again is the road. Maybe 25% of that is the kind of landscape improvements, and then other items such as the removal of the jet and the Veterans Memorial and site furnishings and whether those wayfinding columns are in or not, and then the solar panel structures themselves, but not the solar panel support structure, but not the panels themselves is included in this estimate as well. So something closer to maybe 60% hardscape, 30% or 25% landscape, and 15% miscellaneous kind of architectural site elements.
Okay, and so with that, we're going to move into the building design options. Starting with the program we discussed during the last meeting. We won't go through this in detail, but the high level takeaway is that 1,800 to 2,000 gross square foot addition would be required to meet all of the programmatic requirements that were identified during interviews and other sessions, resulting in a ultimate terminal that would be about 6,800 gross square feet. Again, that's if you're building a terminal from scratch. This is kind of like a greenfield program. And as we've developed the various options, we'll show how each compares to this program. So again, last time we met, we had a number of different options. Option 1 is not shown here. That's the do nothing option. Option 2 is the light touch renovation. And so it would be not substantially adding or changing to the building, but maybe making some strategic upgrades to mechanical electrical systems and building enclosure and refreshing finishes inside. We also had 5 different sort of option 3, which was substantial renovation last time. And following our meeting, we decided to develop 2 of those a little bit more. Option 3C, which was demolition of the south wing of the building and design of a new 1-story structure that would be to the south of the existing central portion of the building. And also option 3E, which retained a portion of the middle part of the building and added a 2-story addition to the south and a 1-story addition to the north. And then we had option 4, which was a complete replacement terminal. So what we'll see for each of these is an elevation, some floor plans, and a perspective view of each of them. So the first option we'll talk about is that light touch renovation, and you might think this looks a lot like the existing terminal because it is the exact facade of the existing terminal, just meant to say all of the changes will substantially leave the structure appearing as it does today. I'm going to move this over to the side here. So the advantages to this one, obviously, it's going to be the lowest cost besides the do nothing solution. And we won't have any questions about, the integrity of the historic structure because it will remain as is. The downsides are that we are very much constrained to the existing floor plate, and we will never be able to make up that 1,800 or 2,000 square feet that we know we need from the program in that existing footprint. We will maybe be able to optimize things here and there, but generally what this option shows is, again, just some light finish renovations and systems upgrades to help the building perform better. The next option is the option 3C, which is replacing the south wing of the building. And again, this is sort of an elevation looking at the front of the building if you're standing right in the front of the parking lot. This portion of the building, the 2-story portion, will remain, as will the north part. And then everything down here to the south will be new. And some of the features that we'll point out in the next slides are the ideas of, introducing an architectural style and vocabulary that picks up the same sort of lines of the existing building so that it harmonizes with it while providing more area. And then looking at some nice amenities like having rooftop space on top of the new addition. That could be a nice feature that adds to the meeting space. So here you see sort of what a proposed highly conceptual plan would be for this scheme. And again, the advantages are that we're going to have a direct connection to the existing terminal, that the expansion piece is going to expand down towards the maintenance hangar with the FBO area sort of adjacent to the hangars, one of the things that we talked about. And some of the other challenges in the scheme are that this portion of the building will pretty much remain as is. So there might be some challenges to height and retrofitting building systems here if we want to make upgrades to those. So just quickly to walk through some of the plan features, the entry area would remain much as it is today. Perhaps we could remove part of the wall to the current lounge space to have an expanded waiting area. We could have a pilots area located on the first floor in the new portion of the building, relocate the simulators, have additional men's and women's restrooms here that would be up to code, and the FBO space. And then on the upper level, the meeting room would remain much as it is today with some modifications to the south side of the building face to provide potential access to a roof deck and a new stair that goes down to the first level. So this is sort of our early interpretation of what this new structure could look like. Again, this is the existing piece. This would be the new piece. We would propose using very similar and harmonious materials to the existing building, picking up on some of the same lines of the canopy, the same sort of very thin, elegant columns to have a little bit of an outdoor promenade. And we started thinking about in each of these options, ways to take sort of the historic signage and maybe start integrating it into the building itself, and potentially doing some things like highlighting it at night so it becomes sort of like a feature of the building instead of just the canopy. And for each of these options, we have a view of one of the key interior spaces. And so this is what we sort of envision as a refreshed meeting area on the upper level. So instead of, the wall that you're looking at now with the television monitor, we would want to open that up maybe with a folding wall system and a door for egress, and have an amenity space out here that could be, have some furnishing and landscape. It could accommodate larger meetings if needed. So this could be sort of an expansion, an indoor-outdoor expansion of the current space today. So I've been talking really fast. We have 2 other options to go through. Before I move on to the next one, any questions about this one? Okay, good. We'll keep going. So the next option, 3E, is basically saving the central portion of the building and doing a 2-story addition on the south side and a 1-story addition on the north side. This is not exactly saving the entire central portion of the building. And when we get into the plans, you'll see why that is. When we did the community meeting, somebody said, wouldn't it be great if we could just save the first 5 feet of the building? And this doesn't quite do that, but it really rethinks what's happening in the middle of the building today. I also wanted to point out before we went on to the other slides that this new piece on the north side is higher in scale because one of the things that we've done here is move the meeting space to the first floor. And to have a larger, more generous meeting space, we wanted a space that had a little extra height. And so we thought that that was kind of like a nice feature to change the proportions of this a little bit. So this plan is a little bit different than the previous one. Walking through the sort of sequence of entry, the entry would still remain the same. The waiting lounge would remain the same, but in the new addition to the north, we would have a much expanded waiting area, new men's and women's restrooms, and a larger meeting room that would be accessed off of the first floor. To the south, in the 2-story addition, would be the FBO, and this probably has the ideal relationship to the waiting lounge so that reception could be there to, respond to people coming in and out of the building. On the upper level, going upstairs, you'll notice that we're proposing removing the floor in the meeting room. So right now, everybody is sitting on air in this scheme and just extending a bridge to connect the existing stair over to the new 2-story addition, which will have the pilot area, airport offices, the simulator, and some storage and mechanical space. What this looks like in sort of perspective view is much the same in terms of the material palette and the sort of attention to detail as the last option. This 2-story piece has large expanses of brick. We would maybe find a way to integrate more like a more modern interpretation of glazing in the areas that need it. And then this structure in many ways also kind of reads very similar to the piece that's there today. It just has different proportions. And again, the signage that was on the canopy is integrated into the building face. This component over here is actually that meeting room that I talked about. And one of the thoughts that the team had was, wouldn't it be cool if in this meeting space we could have a series of windows that basically lined up so you could see all the way through the building right to the airfield. And this is a view inside the building on the first level where that sort of removed floor plate is. This waiting area wouldn't just be made larger because of the expansion. It would also be made more generous because it's open to above. And obviously, we would need to find ways to structurally stabilize this wall here, since it would be spanning 2 floors. But the intent is to basically open this up as a larger volume. The design team also had the thought to basically make a permeable like glass or folding door that went between the expanded waiting room and waiting space in the meeting room, thinking that if you had events, this could actually act as like a pre-function space for people to gather before going into the meeting room. Okay. Did you have a question?
No.
No,
Okay.
I was
Okay.
simply facetious comments. Please carry on.
Okay. And option 4 is option 4 is the replacement terminal. So this is all new, right? So I think some of the things that we heard both from you and from the in the community session was, if we do something new, it should have some of the style and vibe as the existing building. and obviously all of, like many of the civic structures in town have that same character because of the architect who designed them. So this sort of proposes a bit of a different approach to things. But picks up on some of the same thoughts. There's very a predominant horizontal line in this elevation. We're using sections of glazing and solid sections, and kind of picking up the idea of using those like very thin columns as supports for an extended roof structure. And so obviously we had the most leeway with this one. And the idea here is that, there's two halves of the building. There's the kind of public half of the building that has the waiting lounge in the lobby. There's the private half of the building that has the FBO, the pilot area. And then maybe we thought that there could be an elevated meeting room on the second floor that could act as an extension of this sort of public space. So the sequence of entry in this building is that the lobby and waiting lounge would be in this 2-story space. You would enter into the lobby. There would be a reception area attached to the FBO. The pilot area and simulators would be nearest to the airfield, and the waiting lounge would sort of be adjacent to the right. After going up a set of stairs, there would be a gallery space that would be a pre-function space for events, a meeting room to the west, and the airport offices would be on that second level with a little bit of an overlook to the waiting lounge below. There would be a new elevator and new men's and women's restrooms on both of the levels. And this is sort of an approach of what this could look like in perspective view. When we previewed this earlier in the week, there were the comments that sort of the roof form is picking up on some of like the aviation vernacular of the swooping form of the wing of an airplane. So it has some ties not just to the existing building, but to sort of aviation like themes and motifs as a whole. That great 2-story waiting and entry space here would extend over, so there would be a continuous expansive kind of clear story glass at that upper level hitting the meeting room at that second floor. And to address the idea that this building is a gateway not just from the city to the airfield, but for pilots and others arriving on the air side, we wanted to kind of like do a schematic rendering of what it could look like for people arriving to the airport. Again, some of the same features would be evident to visiting pilots. You'd have that great 2-story space, the approach of the roof, and then the sort of more solid portion of the building facing the airfield. This is a snippet of sort of that waiting area and the effect that this could have with the larger volume. Like we could do a very like stylish Mad Men type stair connecting the first and second levels that becomes more of a structural feature element to the space. And then we just started thinking about how this great glazed space could be illuminated at night and start to really sort of act as a beacon for those visiting in the evening hours. So with that, I do have some preliminary costs, but before going to that sheet, I just wanted to sort of like address any questions about the design elements.
I'm sorry, it looks like a zoo cage to me. I don't like that whole one end of it being all that glass and that funny stairs going up. It just, I don't know. It just doesn't. Well, I don't like it.
I think it's pretty cool myself. Yeah.
Absolutely. My one comment is that we need that same with either wholesale replacement or renewed with existing structure. We need to have that lettering on both sides.
Okay.
We want to welcome them to the Iowa City Airport and let them know that they landed at the right place from the air side. Because I think we do have signage on.
It's the same.
It's the same. Yeah.
It's not exactly the same. On this side, it's Iowa City, Iowa.
Yeah. That's it.
But then on the front, we just have municipal.
Just letter for it. Yeah.
Which actually makes a lot of sense, and just to have the city name there. I mean, I've seen was it Steve Martin was here, took a selfie saying, guess where I am, in front of Iowa City, Iowa, and he did a comedy act somewhere, you know.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, so it's kind of got a little bit to it, yeah.
But I mean, hell, I'd even mirror the Iowa City Municipal Airport on both sides.
And then before, yeah, you
And
can do it.
then light it. you
Does
know.
this new structure give us the square footage we're looking for? Cause it looks to me like there, again, with that very large lobby area that.
Where will you lose it all?
That there's unused space that could be at least partially filled in on the second floor.
Yeah, so in terms of building area, we wouldn't count the area on the second floor that's missing here. But let me go to the summary page here. This is intended to meet the 6,800 square foot program area.
I just also wonder about the way it's set up with like the pilot area / simulators. How do people get to that? And
They go up the stairs.
okay, but then
That's all.
I was from the first floor.
They don't show.
Yeah, this is the first floor.
Doors.
Oh,
As you get
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we could arrange this zillions of ways, but we want to be sure that we wanted to have showers for the pilots, right? Yeah.
And is that another set of stairs next to the men's bathrooms, or what are on the left?
Yes, there's another set of stairs because from the upper level, you'll need 2 ways to get out in case of fire.
Yeah.
is there, I can't tell if there is or not. Is there a doorway out from the waiting lounge to the ramp directly? Or do you have to?
Yes. Yes, the intent is that there would be a door or vestibule similar to what's there today.
Okay, so you can go from the waiting lounge straight out to the ramp. You don't have to exit the building and then go through a gate or anything.
Correct, yep.
And pilots who land their airplanes here and then need to like arrange for fuel and stuff. I guess we have to think about how they get to the FBO.
They have a door.
Well, the reception area.
The door will be right where Sherman
Mhm.
House is. And they just walk straight to actually the reception.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's also a door behind of the FPO, right, on the air side? I think I saw on the picture. Is that a door, the one on the back?
Yep, so there's a door here. I mean, there could also be like doors any place along here. Yeah.
Basically, I'm saying like in the waiting area, we would want to have a door to get out. Yeah, like right back in there somewhere where your mouse is.
Yeah, or over here. Yep.
So I like what this looked. I didn't see that little balcony on the plan view.
That's the gallery area.
That's the gallery. Okay,
Mhm.
I like that quite a bit. Could have some tables, some chairs there.
I have a friend who's an interior designer, and I'd be remiss if I didn't use the word timeless, and I hate that I'm using it, but it has a modern aesthetic that looks like it would age well. And then it also looks like an airplane wing. That like it feels appropriate for an airport. But I like it a lot.
In detail, like door locations and
That's
all
all
the restrooms, where the showers are, all
that
that.
can all be-
is
that can all be
design
sorted out
things.
later. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, this is like a super concept idea of what it would look like, right? If this actually goes into like a design phase, like you would do so many different variations of the elevation and what the roof looked like and all the plans.
Have you thought about energy efficiency? I know that's been some people's concern with a large amount of glass.
Yeah, so with the glass, it would definitely be a double pane, like an insulated glass unit, and we would select like a film or tinting on the glass itself so that it was energy efficient.
That's still a large area to heat and cool, and with people going in and out doors, you don't have the double doors.
Well, you can put airlock vestibules on both lane side and air side so that
So you don't have that
Yeah,
there.
so that it. you
Mhm.
have Openings.
It just looks like,
And then the second floor is the windows go all the way to the floor?
No, we're saying that on the second floor, like this would be more of like a clear story, so it would be a series of high windows.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah, because
But
Yeah,
then
like-
for the conference room, we wouldn't be able to see the air space because it would be high.
No, we'd be able to see it.
Would there be any
Those are my windows.
light control, just glaring sunlight, on the east and west exposures, certain times of day? I have some concerns about that. If it's just plain glass,
Yeah, we need some sort of like.
we need some kind of, shades or.
The other were tinted, no?
Yeah, you can reflectorize, or you can tint and to minimize heat gain or hold things in, and you can have the shades that control the light when it comes in and out, and you're right, it can even be automatic. So
The overhang can certainly be constructed to minimize heat gain
Yeah.
in the summer and to maximize heat gain in the winter. I mean, it could be a net plus, at least in the winter time. To have
instead of having the stairs going down from the top down to the middle, it seems like you're losing all of this waiting area space. Have it go down,
Yeah, that
Maybe
detail,
not.
that detail could be.
and then you could reduce the amount of that huge cage.
I will
Almost the whole
say,
building.
I get, this evokes images of like. European airport terminals that are light years ahead of anything it feels like we're building in the US. And it feels like I'm getting a lot of callbacks to the current building like that. But it also puts a weird twist on.
I agree.
You just came from there.
I think it basically, it welcomes you to a real modern dynamic city.
And there's a lot of the questions or comments have to do with the design phase. Once we get
Yeah,
funding for this and move ahead, and then all those details will be worked out in the design phase.
yeah.
One other question that my brother pointed out, when we were talking about this, is when you pull in the driveway now, the whole building is off to the south of what you see when you pull in the driveway. And like this, it appears that that's kind of the same, it's kind of off to the left. Like, would it make sense to just move it 40 feet to the south? Well, when you're building brand new, just move it
To the north.
Yeah.
to the north, sorry, to the north, so you can see it.
Yeah, I think that's a real consideration. We tried to keep it in generally the same spot, but when we get to the costing slide, one of the things we sort of flagged there is this doesn't really take into consideration what's going to happen while this building is being constructed. So maybe if we move it to the north, that will eliminate concerns with how you operate the existing facility while the new one is being constructed.
Seeing it from the road.
But when you pull it in the lane, when you pull down the lane, you look out and you can see the ramp, which is cool, and I like that actually too. But if in this case, especially with glass on both sides, if you shift it down, you can see through the building and you still see the building. And you know, that's where I'm supposed to go,
That is exactly why I like the glass design, because when you have P-51s and other cool things parked out front, you can't see it from the road.
Yeah.
You can actually look through that and see what's on the ramp.
And also, this is super duper valuable space. If you shift this left, you didn't have room someday, you could potentially put another hangar right there where it's easy to get to. Easy to get to, I mean, that's.
I know where you want it.
Yeah. So this one is attached to the building.
There.
What's that?
And even if we leave there without moving it, considering the landscaping plan that they have to have on this side,
Yeah,
there's not big, long, tall trees, but they're gonna be kind of
That's
like
true.
this. Would that still block it?
no, not necessarily.
Could you be looking straight
It'll
through
open
them?
up as you come out of them, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, not necessarily, it's not bad now, I mean, it's not bad at all, just if you're gonna start from scratch. Might as well put it. As the natural culmination.
Okay, yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
are there any,
Yeah.
Carolyn, can you show us like what I can imagine are some eye-watering financial figures?
Yes.
Yeah.
I stopped right before that page. So I'll do this high level and then we have more detail on the next page. So for all of these options, we assumed that the landscape plans or some like similar landscape plan that Ryan showed would be used in all 4 of these options. You might decide that in option 2, like when you're doing sort of the light touch, you might not want to do the entire new parking lot, right? So that we can sort of decouple when we go to that. But option 2, we were looking at $3.6 million. Options 3E and 3C and 3E were basically about $600,000 difference, but both in the $5 plus $5 million range. And then the new building, we were showing it just a little under $7 million. Again, we haven't done a full hazmat report, so any special like asbestos abatement has not been accounted for. We're having new finishes in all of the schemes. All of the schemes have new mechanical systems, electrical systems, and so forth. We're assuming all of the utilities that go to the building are okay, and we don't need to like replace a 500-foot piece of, sewer pipe out to the street. And there is a new elevator, public stair, and double height lounge space in option 4, obviously. The other options keep the elevator in place, and usually that's a big cost component. So I'm going to actually just go to this one and walk through how we developed the costs. So what we did basically is just take a cost per square foot. So even though we put some architectural touches on that option 4, it is estimated just on the size of the building itself. So for renovated square foot, we estimated $300 per square foot. The new build was $480 per square foot. That was based on benchmarking from recent projects, including that project in Ames that we escalated, over the past 5 years of construction cost escalation, which has been unusual and unparalleled in the industry. So just for the new and renovated square footage for this 3E option, that came to $3 million for the terminal itself. The site work, as Ryan went through, was $1.1 million. So all of the actual new and renovated work was $4.1 million. Then you get into sort of, those are kind of what we would call the hard costs. The soft costs included a design and construction contingency, a percentage for general liability builders risks, estimation of what the architectural and engineering fees would be. And then if you want to hire a construction manager to manage the work, that also comes sort of as a percentage of the hard costs of the building. So by the time you add all of the hard costs and then put FF&E, which is like furnishing and equipment, permitting, surveying and testing, that $4 million of hard work turns into $5.6 million of total project cost. So this is the stuff you see, the stuff you don't see. And then we put escalation on because we know things will get more expensive over the next few years. And so on top of that $5.6 million is a 6% escalation, and that gets us to the overall probable cost. We could drill into what the cost per square foot is, but in a large portion of this, kind of equation, a lot of the costs are the below the line costs. So does that all pencil out?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's basically 1 million more for the totally new building.
Yes, compared to the sort of substantially renovated one.
6.9 and 1 million more.
Is it 6.0? Oh yeah, sorry.
And the option 4, that includes the tear down of this building in the cost, like demolition costs.
That's a good point. We did not include a separate line item for demolition, but we also didn't in these. So Jeff, I think after the meeting, we should go back and think a little bit about whether this $300 is sufficient for demolition as well.
We just ran out of sledgehammers.
You cannot use the box blade or the truck.
Oh,
And the truck to work.
yeah.
Okay.
What'd you say? I'm sorry, what'd you say for demolition?
So
Not included.
we don't have that in here. Yeah.
The other concern is we also don't have included any temporary facilities we might need to operate out of while either new construction is going on or remodels are happening. Because especially if we do both ends of the building, obviously
Yep.
Air needs to relocate at some point in time. We need to relocate at some point in time.
So do you have any
Closest.
trailer offices that can wheel in for everybody? We promise it'll get better.
I love
So
that.
there's
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to this. It's not just.
there is a lot of moving parts to this, and I think that dovetails into my next segment of the conversation, which I gave everybody the packet of the notice of FAA funding.
Yes.
And we are not ready to go after construction money. And we're not going to be ready in the next month to go after construction money. But we can potentially be ready to go after planning and design, which gets us that next step. Because we're going to have the environmental process, which we knew about. There's any of these options has some historical issues that we're going to have to work through in terms of preservation. Because we're either demolishing part of this existing building or the entire building. What those options are at the moment aren't quite known, or what the needs are, what we're gonna have to do, aren't quite known. But also to get in a better position of going after grant money kind of next October. We really need to have this thing designed, bid, and have bid prices in hand.
Before we do this.
Before, when we fill out this application.
So this is like the best time to do this then.
So what I'm gonna propose tonight is that we keep going down the line we have.
Yep.
If everybody's kind of gravitated to the new building idea, and I don't want to, and you've all heard me basically say, I want a new building. Honestly, I don't think any three of these options are bad.
No.
I am absolutely impressed by what everybody has done on the team, what they've presented. So my heart that was set on a brand new building.
Burn it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe it has liked it.
maybe there's some things we can do
But
that.
if you see the cost, it's like,
I'm not disagreeing that there's logical reasons to do a new building.
Yeah. 3E was honestly my favorite
I like 3E.
until I saw it. And then I saw the price difference and I'm like, yeah, I was paying $1 million. I'll pay it.
Because
Will you? Well.
we are gonna and we are gonna have to have a couple more conversations because right now.
Yeah.
The placeholder amount that we've kind of got worked out with financing with City Hall is $5 million. So we're $2 million short. This is still a 95% grant. So
This is 95?
this is 95% FAA money.
I thought it was 90. Like every other.
Typically it is, but not with this.
So this doesn't follow the AIP rate.
This does not follow the AIP. Most of the rules do. Most of the rules do. Don't look past that.
Yeah.
But as far as the
This
funding, this
specific-
is a 95.5 grant opportunity.
I don't think I would miss that. Okay.
So we do need to have some conversations with finance and with the city manager's office and be like, okay, now we at least have kind of, we've been working on a placeholder. We have a general idea of what is going to make sense for the airport, what that cost really looks like. How do we get there with the local match? Because I think we did the math and it's $7 million, it's $350,000 of local match.
And now they're planning on $250,000, so you're $100,000.
Plus, that's not covering demolition and that's not covering relocation.
It's not covering that. And Carolyn, just to be clear, this also doesn't include Ryan's figures for the outside landscape.
That does.
This does. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for example, like I said, if we needed to cut just a little bit of that, you can phase the parking construction to cut some numbers out of that as the needs occur, and just lay it all out and make sure that if you want parking underneath the solar, make sure the supports will accept that. And then you pay one area, and then down the road, if you need more, then it's all set up. You just come
Yeah,
in.
you just kind of do it in phases.
You can phase
I mean, you're gonna have to do it. It's not like this is gonna get done in one
Yeah.
season anyway, but,
Right.
I really like 3E.
what prior art is there for some of these terminal projects that the FAA has written grants for? Is this is this outside of like the standard grant award that the FAA has been doing for these projects?
I haven't seen, and Carl, I don't know if you've had, if you
I can look at it.
dug
I
through
don't
it.
have it on top of me.
I've seen a lot of smaller things go to GA airports. I've seen one or two like in the multi-million-dollar range of new terminals, but a lot of people are doing renovation type work. You can go to the same website I look at if you're curious. But yeah, it's that same BIL that I sent out last month when I was like, if you guys want to go down the rabbit hole, here's literally the same thing I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Well, that could be though, because this just came out, people don't have time to make a big plan for.
Well, yeah, and that's part of it. Like the first 2 years are kind of, within that window of, it's a new program, nobody really knows how it works.
And unless you had a building design in progress already, you weren't ready to go.
Basically, yeah, exactly. And that was part of the grant program, is they wanted actual constructible things, when they gave you money.
Yep.
So I at the end of the day, what I'm hoping to do this fall, within the next month, because we have obviously a deadline in front of us, work with the team to get essentially a design bid type contract that we normally do with our construction projects. Get that drafted to the point where we know what that cost is, so we can use that cost to apply for basically phase one of this.
We're basically getting like what you would present to us, Carl.
Right, complete environmental work, historical work.
The next year's environmental design bid, so that next October, we're handing off or going after the grant for the actual construction.
And the fees for designing that engineering document and all that work, that's part of the terminal study.
That's all, that's
included in this.
That's
This would break the cost into 2 years with, of course, a much smaller portion in the getting ready phase, and then a much larger portion being the actual construction phase.
Yeah.
Okay. This sounds great. I'm really supportive of let's do it right. There's no way we can get this done in a month. So let's take the next year, let's do it right. Let's get the package put together, submit it next year, and see what comes back.
The next step is, I guess, between 3E and 4, what are we doing? Because we kind of need that direction
today. I mean, as soon as possible.
As soon as possible. I don't necessarily have to do it today. We can let everybody sleep on it. But we do need, we'll probably need to do a special meeting in that case to just talk about this. And if there's any other questions, or you've seen both of the layouts, if there's some things we want to try differently with both of those in terms of the office space layouts, in terms of where things are, that does give folks a chance to kind of go back and tweak a few things.
That basically comes into play after you're in the design phase though, right?
Say that again?
Like all the details, we don't have to know any of that till we've already got the.
No, we don't need to know the details, but how we've got it, or how the team's got it laid out in terms of, we expect this area to be FBO. Think about the walkthrough type stuff. Like, you're a pilot, you walk into the building, one of the new building had the reception area called out. 3E isn't much different in terms of the space. You walk into the lounge, the FBO's right there. Presumably we're going to have build out a reception desk on that wall that is the lounge. So we've got that. I don't know that there's a whole lot in those layouts that I would change.
No.
What was the new building layout?
If you set down the path of 3E or something like that, got the design and architecture and stuff approved, got the money to do that part of it. And then when you show up for the actual bid, you've determined that that's not going to be feasible because you start tearing apart two sides of a 50-year-old building or whatever it is. can, at what point in time to reach a point of no return where now we just lost our opportunity, or is there that? I guess to what level does that have to be decided tonight that you're gonna go down? Cause you're basically doing 90% demolition and rebuild with option 3C versus 100%.
I would say. I mean, because a lot of it, the whole point of designing the next step is that's where we're going. So probably the decision we make tonight, and until we get a little bit deeper in the environmental phase of it, because I think that's probably going to come first to some degree. The environmental should be roughly the same for both. I can't say that because we leave part of the original building.
If we're leaving part of it, then we look at, say, the asbestos issue, and there would be different historical aspects than if we go with from 3 to 4. There'll be some differences, but that's something we'll have to work out on the scope of what's required. With the environment.
Is there a chance?
Oh, it was the first thing I thought.
I mean, there would be a point of no return. I just don't know what that is.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, I can change the floor.
Yeah.
I can change the floor.
So
The problem of the,
my vote would be for 4. Like, I don't need to sleep on it.
okay, I can change the floor.
Brian? Sure, you would. No, you get to have a different opinion.
Yes, it doesn't have to be a unanimous decision. I mean, I understand it's a lot cleaner and.
Yeah.
If we get the money for it, yeah.
It's unanimous.
And it says does not retain the historic structure. I was hell bent before we came into this that I wanted to keep something of it. I think that option 4 actually
Feels like it.
it feels like this building. Just
Motion to approve option 4. All in favor?
I
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
And then I guess we'll talk about the next steps and trying to get ourselves ready for this NOFO so we can fill out a grant for design and environmental and whatever planning processes we need to do to be ready to essentially have this thing bid next October and go after next year's funding.
Geothermal and some of those other things?
That would be something we look at as part of the design, yes. My intent with the new building was to be a LEED building.
That would be perfect, right? Yes.
So if that's not part of our thought process, we probably need to think about that.
Mike and the FBO and the commission are going to be heavily involved in the input all the way along that. So that's something that don't worry about that.
Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, give me a second. We check the notes here.
Well, I have 4.
And then it was Warren, the second of that.
Yes, mine, yes. And we're all in favor.
Everybody, okay. Solar power project, I believe CMT has submitted all of the stuff to FAA for the environmental review of it. As part of that process, we do need to have like a public comment period for building the floodplain essentially. So what I'm asking for essentially is authorization to publish that notice for the public comment period. The ads are already prepped to go into the paper on Monday, the 18th, and it'll last for a month. So next October, the 18th, we'll be done with that and should be ready to get grant money to design and construct phase 1. Or go after.
Are we designing this again, going back to what we just saw? Are we designing this with that in mind or the ability to change? Like what is this?
What we're doing right now is I will send CMT a copy of kind of the landscaping. I haven't had a chance to do that today. But I will send them a copy of the landscape layout that was shown in terms of the future. That is all phase 2. So that isn't going to happen right away anyway. We have time to kind of sort that out.
Oh, it was phase 1.
So this one is the one.
That's what that looks like. Yeah.
All right, great. Okay, I'm better now.
I think we adapt a resolution to publish notice of floodplain encroachment for public comment.
All in favor? Oh. Where the, oh, Warren?
Aye.
Present. Right.
Aye.
Jimmy? And Electra, I.
No one is with you. Sorry, I could have worn my name tag today.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Because you guys know my last name and I don't know everybody's last name, so. Yeah.
Iowa DOT grants, FY 23 program, terminal building improvements. We do have a contract for that. That was $15,200. That's with me right here. I don't have a resolution to approve it because it was under all of the CIP stuff. It was all informal. So Jennifer, I don't know. I feel like I should have them approve that contract anyway, but it was $15,000. So it's all under our CIP stuff. I don't really want to delay anything, but
Do you usually do that with a resolution?
usually the contracts are resolutions, and that's kind of my fault for dropping the ball on that. But can we just motion for the chair to sign?
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Okay. So
I move that we let the chair sign.
Yeah, I'd like the chair to sign the contract for the terminal.
Yeah.
The wayfinding signage is something I do want to talk about a little bit. Carl, I'm going to lean on very heavily because we did send out letters to them.
Motion, we did.
Yeah, I did the motion. We have that.
Oh, sorry.
Roll call, or all in favor?
No, it's just a motion.
It's just
All in favor.
Oh, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're caught up.
No.
We did send out our sign information to
15 different sign contracts.
there we go.
1-5.
1-5.
But what I want to talk about is they kind of changed how it looks. So it's not the cutout metal. It's using an acrylic.
When I was talking to some sign manufacturers, that everybody's agreed that cutout metal would look really neat, but it would be one of the most expensive ways to go. If you ever wanted to change it down the road, it would be expensive to change. And so we had in there, if you have another proposal of what you would recommend for signage, send it in. And that's what they did.
Final.
I guess for that also, because I wasn't part of this, but I would assume that there was a pot of money that was associated with that. So whether or not they made the metal one or the plastic one meant
That part doesn't matter to the grant.
Okay, but they would, so it was still just whatever, they didn't get a bid, like a amount of money that they had to work with, they just were bidding the project. Okay.
And this was a state grant, right? This is state funding this. How does this factor in with what we're maybe looking to do with landscaping and stuff out front?
All in all, it might need to be relocated to some degree from where we're initially planning on placing it, but not.
We're looking to keep the same sign.
We think those columns they were showing could be modified to look like this and use this as one of them or something like that too.
Yeah. This'll play in fairly nicely with what the landscape is.
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with it. Fine. I mean, the metal would look really sharp.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool.
Not nearly as cool, but
Yeah.
you know, I get it.
But if everybody's okay with this, I'm happy to move forward with it. I want, because it was a kind of, at least in my opinion, kind of a dramatic change of what we thought we were gonna get. I wanted to make sure everybody was okay with that.
One thing I want to talk to the contractor about is they, at the bottom, the gray part, they propose that as being an aluminum surround to hide the support post, where I had it on a concrete base.
Yeah.
And one of the primary reasons I put it on a concrete base is so that when you're mowing and edging, you're not. My concern with the way they proposed was that you're gonna run into the aluminum with a mower, it's gonna look like crap in a short period of time. So,
Can you get that penny?
well, that's why I'm going to ask what the credit would be, because I was under the impression they didn't want to do that kind of, we might have to just break a couple little pieces, and I don't know if this is a concern about. They said that they do the electrical in the sign, but they did not, they had on here that they weren't bringing the power to the sign, which was part of So those are some things that we would have to see.
Well, maybe we should just hold off on the poll.
Yeah.
See.
Let's wait. Can we
Well,
wait?
we do have
Release
a
money.
limited time that we've got to contract with the grant, so we're pushing up against that. That's kind of the issue we're working at right now.
And we were wanting to get it done this construction season where if we push, we're too much further, we would be pushing that.
Cause the arrows might change then.
They will change. If you look at
Yeah.
the landscape sign, that we'll have to get the sign redone to account for the direction. I'm almost of the opinion that like, given,
And how much is it
12,595.
sorry,
for that cost?
I mean,
Not worth it.
I'm almost thinking that we like table this one for now, just because like the design is somewhat different. There's,
Everything's.
it's going to have to change if we actually go forward with this.
And that's fine.
And then we give the grants back to the states.
Oh, that's fine, yeah.
The question I have as far as tabling it, are we just, because I can potentially get an extension on the grant from the state. So we could either say, we're not doing this because of these factors, give the money back. Yeah, it's
Kind of like what we did with
15 grand. What we did with the hangar doors. And I think given the circumstances, again, Shane would be like, yeah, that seems fine, and it's.
I just don't want to waste 15 grand if we know that.
That's kind of where I'm at too, especially with this one particular is.
Painted on it, you know.
And to some degree, as part of the driveway, we can put it into the.
Put it into the other one. That's why I'm like, save the state the money.
Going into it, I mean, as part of that project.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why this feels very short term and like 15 grand for. a short
Give
term
me
fix.
a motion to, give mine back to you.
I move that we table the wayfinding project and direct Mike to look the funds back to the state.
Wayfinding on your carpet temporarily like that.
No, sorry. And you were the master of asking if we can use money for something else. Yeah.
This is just a motion. So,
All in favor?
Aye.
You said, it, right? I did.
Yeah, sorry to shake it up on Mike.
No, that's good too.
But it's,
It just might.
Well, they completely changed.
Yeah.
We want.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I brought it back. You know, it just felt
yes.
different.
No, I appreciate that.
Locally funded projects, we don't have anything. We're gonna be talking about the budget over the next month. Same thing with future projects. Don't really have anything on the table now. We're in our projects, airport operations budget. Budget kickoff is the 27th of this month. That's when the accounting should release all our initial budget reports. Chris Warren and Judy have been through the process before. At that point in time, Electra and Chris, you are the standing budget committee. Will get in touch to.
I've done it. It's not bad.
You know, I'll send all the spreadsheets and all of that fun stuff out to everybody to kind of run through. And then, you know, we can talk and meet. Chances are we'll need to have things figured out for the October meeting, because we won't get that much time to turn it around and put it back in finance's hands before they turn off the system. Anything else?
So meeting in person was kind of what we were thinking about, like the three of us, so we can get it finalized in one sitting? Or do you prefer email and stuff?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Just come,
Good.
just handle it.
Yeah. Hundred.
So we did last time. It was definitely pre-COVID. Not that.
Yeah, no.
I don't.
Okay, good. And where are we at, airport?
Management, next Tuesday, joint meeting with the city council. Obviously, we went into this with the intention of presenting our strategic plan. I will reach out tomorrow to the city manager's office and give them a heads up that maybe we want to talk about the unhoused encampment situation.
Oh, I can sweet talk that right into the strategic plan.
I don't
said we wanted more people at the airport. We maybe didn't have this in mind.
But I want to make sure everybody's aware of.
Yeah, no, I don't want to.
And if it becomes an issue where it, like, yeah, I just want to make sure either we're okay to talk about it, or I can let everybody know that maybe I understand everybody wants to talk about it, but there's probably a more appropriate channel to do it.
Yep.
It also fits in with, the planning that they're going through about changing zoning. So that you can have different groups go into neighborhoods and stuff, so, and that's supposed to help with that part of the plan.
Yeah, it's,
So it fits into some of their, this point.
Yeah, it's just there's a work session and we said that we were gonna talk about our strategic plan, so like, I'm wondering if that's better suited for like five.
Yeah.
You know, meeting that item's not on the agenda, public comments or.
or, you know, somebody just offers to have a meeting with the city manager and shut out and be like, hey, here's what we're dealing with.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Can I come along?
Sure.
Two, you can.
I'd rather talk to the mayor.
He's
city
a-
council, but-
I mean, individually, you're welcome to reach out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know that.
Don't
but
forget that.
It seems nice to have something in minutes that are recorded versus me just emailing the mayor.
You can
Because-
email the city council and that becomes part of the, it becomes permanent.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know,
I mean, it's quite a different thing, but I like it.
yeah, I like being up in front of them all because they do have to, and they, or I don't know.
Just go to one of the, go.
But yeah,
we're
they
there
just
for the-
listen to me.
We're there for the work session and then stay through for the next part and talk
Yeah.
in.
Well, yeah, but then they just listen to me and then they're like, "Oh," and then it moves on. I'd rather be there as like an airport commission. I would like to say that they should provide some or step into it and not just be like, oh yeah, the airport commission is having to deal with it. Well, that's interesting.
Well, and that's also the other half of the conversation. Like, if somebody's gonna talk on behalf of the airport commission, I wanna make sure we're all
On the same page, one way. Yep.
It should be on there.
So, yeah.
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 So going back to the meeting real quick, what is the plan here?
So we've got roughly, I've never expected a super long conversation, but I've seen like 15, 20 minutes. We can basically talk about whatever we want to with the strategic plan. You know, I would anticipate kind of a run through the executive summary. And highlight, you know, 2 or 3 of those goals, or I mean, we only have 4 goals in there anyway, I think. You know, highlight a couple of those things where, like solar power project, terminal building, art mural, where we're kind of hitting everything in terms of, you know, solar power, both the environmental side, it helps with our budget, art mural, trying to, you know, community connection, get people out to the airport, terminal building again for both pilots and non-aviation uses, but also to help the facility operate, you know, for next.
Like gateway into our
Yeah.
beautiful city.
Exactly, and, you know, we can promote that, you know, part of the other half of the reason to do this is somebody comes in, some business leader comes in looking for space, and I like to tell my Costco story that's getting dated now, but when Costco was coming in and took over the Tyson's building, I knew about it 6 months before it hit the papers because they flew in here. And we were the first thing they saw for the community. So that's. And despite that, they came.
In the last 2 years, it hasn't happened again. It's really.
Well, we get a number of folks that come through the airport that are looking to, you know, build businesses in the community and vice versa. We have community members that are leaving through the airport to go do business in other places to grow what they're doing.
Yeah, and we can do that.
Are we dividing this in Concord or?
I mean, we can,
Or are we doing one person and we'll?
or we can have Judy just talk for everybody.
Yeah, that's. Great.
As far as people being there, it's important for everybody to be there.
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, we're.
So,
Yeah.
you know, barring the end of the world, do your best to be there. But beyond that, yeah, if you guys want to chop it up and a couple of people talk, and I'm hoping to kind of introduce everybody and turn it over to you guys. And sure, I'm happy to be there to fill in the gaps and.
But we have.
You guys are
PowerPoint, or anything?
I'm not planning on any PowerPoint. The council will have the strategic plan as part of their information packet that probably came out today. I think they usually come out on Thursdays, so that should be.
As long as they have a copy of it, we can.
If you want, kind of similar to what we do here, I can have the city clerk's office put the document on a computer so that if you want
I
to
wonder if it's
cycle through it.
smart to have a picture of the potential terminal building.
Do that.
Yeah. That would be great.
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know that I wanna go down that route.
Would be too early.
It is, and like,
No.
yeah, I don't, not until later. I don't wanna,
It's gonna throw it in that.
Someone may object.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
why are you turning down the road? I don't.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Okay.
Keep it focused on the plan. We can talk about the fact that we're doing a terminal study, that we're starting to evaluate options that we're undergoing.
We need more space.
We know we need more space. We're working on this, and this is where it aligns.
And the building's falling apart. I think that's.
We don't want Mike to be near us. And lead paint.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this sounds good.
Yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, if there's anything else you want me to do to give you information, I'm happy to do that.
As long as they've got paper copies of, or a digital version.
They'll have a digital version.
That'll fine, that's fine.
And
And then I'll bring.
then that, we'll see everybody at 4 o'clock on Tuesday for that.
Driving back to Wisconsin.
City Hall, it's at City Hall. Yes. If you're not familiar with the council chambers, when you first walk into the lobby of City Hall, it's immediately to the right.
So walk in on the floor on the south end of that building.
Yeah, upstairs and then in.
Across from the farmer's
Where's
market.
the phone?
Walk in across from the Chauncey Swan parking.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
yeah, all right, yeah, and then it's on the right as you walk in the store.
Yep. You go
And there's a
door,
reception desk, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
there's
So
a,
they'll
right
point me in the
across
right
the-
direction.
yeah, there should be somebody still at the reception desk because the work session starts at 4.
Yep,
So.
okay.
That takes care of that. Events, the last autocross session is October 1st. Pancake breakfast, I left that on here because I wanted to remember to talk about it. But as far as turnout, it was one of the better turned out breakfasts that I've seen in recent memory. Even predating COVID. We had a few fly-ins. I wish we had more. But as far as people and just people on the area down there, it was always packed, always. And I cycled through like every half an hour or so, trying to take pictures and throw stuff on Facebook and things like that. But I didn't get any numbers from the folks on how many breakfasts they actually served, but just, yeah, it was.
Rough estimate?
I mean, if it was, it'd be like a good year for them is usually like 3,000 or 4,000 breakfasts. Like they really do a lot. So if this was in the close to the 5s, maybe above 5, I would not be surprised. But it was very impressive. They always do a good job. Thanks to Matt and Jetter's team for getting things cleaned out, especially this year because Jetter's been a little short staffed with some turnover. And then Thursday of next week, we have the Climate Fest film night, movie about pollinators, going to be shown in drive-in style like we do with Summer of the Arts.
Like training reports? FBI.
Cool. This will be super brief because I know it's late. The breakfast was a big thing. We had brought over some guys. We were short a few people because Andrew's been with us for 4 or 5 years, took a different job, and oh gosh, and Sean's long day. Sean also been with us for quite a while. He headed out for another different job as well, leaving the area. So it was a bummer that we lost both 2 weeks before the pancake breakfast. So some of the airport maintenance stuff was going to be difficult. We brought over for that in terms of prepping for it. We brought over 2 or 3 guys for the 2 days leading up to the breakfast to do all the weeding and trimming, like really, getting ready for a show, for the holes, all that kind of stuff. So yes, that's all done, which is good. The breakfast, was really good. This game day that's gonna be this weekend, we have 3 Sea Stallion helicopters coming for the flyover, which are like big helicopters. And they're actually gonna, typically the flyover airplanes stay in Cedar Rapids, but because of their helicopters, they're actually gonna come over here on Friday night. They'll stay here Friday, and then they'll do the flyover on Saturday. So, and you said there's
In line with that, yeah, the Marine Corps recruiting office is gonna do a nice little event because one of their pilots came from the area into their office, so they're using that for a recruiting tool. Having little folks out here for that.
Are we using the conference?
They're using the view area outside.
Oh, good. All right.
Yeah, so very cool. Yeah. So, but on that, unless anybody has any questions, that's pretty much that day there. Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Commission member report. I'm not gonna be here next week.
This Saturday, I'll have hamburgers out of the hangers.
Marvin Track should be open all lanes.
It is.
Yeah, right now it's only the 2 in the middle,
It's always 2 lanes though.
but
The bike lanes?
they've moved them into the middle.
Yeah,
Because they're still working on the sides,
Yeah.
but if they should have it totally open for Saturday.
So everybody's gonna be here October?
I think so, my calendar is,
So you won't be here.
I can join from Zoom, but I'm going to a conference. I'm gonna be.
The quick gets to that.
no worries.
I'm going to be in charge.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for.